We'll probably see some more people joining later. That's quite normal for these kind of lunchtime webinars. People still preparing their lunches before they join us, and that's completely fine. I'll keep it very short from my side, because the main reason that we're here is to hear from and learn from Marc. So Marc, welcome, and thank you for joining me today. This is one of the many webinars that we organize at Surmar. And we do so for many reasons. Sometimes we want to speak about upcoming legislation, which is usually about circular economy themes or digitization themes. In other cases, we try to discuss our own developments, what we have created in the case of our digital product passports. But more importantly, we try to give the stage to circular frontrunners and have them share why they do what they do, how they do it, and what they encounter, the challenges, the opportunities. And that's why I think Marc is an excellent speaker to basically guide us through his journey in the circular economy. And from my side, I will only briefly, for those of you who don't know us, introduce Surmar. Surmar is short for circular materials, circular market, sorry. And what we do is basically everything in the circular economy, from strategizing, product development and concept development to digitization in digital product passports. We bring circularity in operations together with partners. And we do so for a pretty wide range of companies. And Marc Meijers of DenimX is one of the companies that uses our digital product passport, which is called C-Passport. But that won't be the central theme today. We will touch upon it later and look at how DenimX is using our solution to basically communicate what they're doing right. Also compared to other types of products, similar products. So for now, I would very much like to give the stage to Marc and have him introduce himself, because he's far better at doing so than I am. Marc, take it away.
Well, thank you a lot, Jasper. Well, my name is Marc Meijers. You already heard it. I was educated as an industrial designer, and I started my own design agency in Maastricht, in the Netherlands, in 1993, so quite some time ago. And ever since 2017, I'm also the owner of a second company with the name of DenimX. It's a company that focuses on the upcycling of discarded textiles. And every now and then we get a question, aren't you afraid that there are not enough resources in that area? Well, I can guarantee you there are more than enough. And as the next slide may show, I hope you're on slide number 4, Jasper, since I don't see the presentation either. The world is facing an enormous textile waste problem. Not only a textile waste problem, we are facing a textile problem, since we produce an enormous amount of textile garments, around 100 billion pieces of garments each year. And just to give you an idea, in the Netherlands, every person on average buys around 46 pieces of garments a year and throws out around 40 pieces of garments. So that's already quite a lot. And from that, you can make all kinds of new products, materials, and also partly new textiles. I think further introduction will be shown in the next video. I hope everybody can hear the voiceover. So let's start that one. Thank you.
the video is done, Mark. So take it away.
Okay, thank you. Well, it gave you a brief insight in the way DenimX is operating. And maybe to clarify this once more, DenimX does not make new textiles from textiles. This is a separate process with a different approach. We create new products and also materials from discarded textiles, but in general, not being textiles. And I think in the next picture already, you are showing slide number 6, I would guess. Yes. You can see let's say, a graphic overview of our process, where on the left top side, there is the discarded jeans. Here it says jeans, but in fact, we can use any kind of material. The requirement is that it is being processed by the machines that are partners or, let's say, supplying to us. Since this is the overall approach of DenimX, we work together with partners for each step in the process. In that way, we're not, let's say, limited by any kind of technology or type of machinery of which you have to earn back your investment. We can work with all kinds of partners and all kinds of technologies. This is quite important for the process that we promote. Once the jeans are collected and also sorted, then they are torn apart, unraveled by big machineries. This is done by a specific partner. Also, all buttons, zippers, and all stuff that are not wanted within this recycled content are taken out. Also, in the next phase, we then mix the fibers with bio-based plastic. And one step that's not in the picture here is a non-woven production, where we create a non-woven cloth out of those recycled fibers combined with bio-based fibers. These non-wovens you can laminate, press into 3D shapes, and from that you can get any kind of 3D product that fulfills yet another function. But what is important to mention is that, in fact, what DenimX does is a kind of reverse engineering, since in order to know how the process and the recipe should be described and shaped, it's important to understand what requirements the end product will have. For instance, you see a suitcase in this example. If it would be a chair seat, you already have completely different requirements. If it would have been a tabletop, it also have different requirements. So for that reason, we call this reverse engineering. We look into the requirements of the product that you want to create, and then go back into the process and see what type of resources we can use, what type of technologies we should apply in order to reach the level of requirements of that specific product. So now you might go to the next slide. Based on this process, we've developed a number of recipes. You can see an overview of the types of materials that we've created so far. It consists of an EcoFelt, a biolaminate, an HPL, which stands for high pressure laminate. And we're also working on an injection molding granulate. So these are all different types of technologies aiming at different types of outcomes. And if you look at only, for instance, HPLs, they are applied in tabletops where you require high scratch resistance, chemistry resistance, and so on. So we call that high performance materials. The biolaminate is more medium performance, and the EcoFelt is then, for instance, for soft applications. In the next slide, you can see an overview of the EcoFelt and also some possibilities where we can apply this kind of material. Now, felt is already a widely applied type of material, also in the recycling business. In almost any car, you can find recycled textiles as a backing of door panels and overlays or the liners in your car, mostly for acoustic absorption. And this is also where it finds a lot of applications. In the next slide, you can see one of them. Here you can see an application that we did for Nike Europe in this case, where we used their own discarded or overstock textile garments. In this case, shirts were used. So from Nike, for Nike, we created acoustic panels, which they applied in their European Logistics Center in Laagdorp, Belgium. And it helped them to have better, let's say, meetings in the spaces that they have available. And there are a lot of offices in this area. I think in this place already around 7,000 people are employed. So you can imagine that there's also a lot of meeting and gathering. So Nike, we asked Nike then if you would like to have an acoustic panel in return. Maybe you can already turn to the next slide. Of what type of material do you have around 2 to 3 tons of material lying around, preferably in one color, so we know the outcome of the process. Sorry. And then they came up with this specific type of shirt that they had in stock. In this case, it was the England shirt of the national team of England, of which they had lying around maybe a few tons. So we use that to create these panels, but also took care of the certification of those panels, because you need to be sure that the acoustic properties are fitting with the requirements, but also the fire resistancy. So this was a good example of turning a waste stock into something that has value again. And this is what we try to promote with DenimX. Maybe next slide. Here you can see another application, also acoustic properties of a technology that was developed by one of our partners. It's what they call a rolling press, in which you can create a 3D texture or structure that has both aesthetics and acoustic properties, which may find a way into interiors. Next slide. This shows another example of also acoustics, but also aesthetics of our denim felt. This is a bar of a restaurant in which they want to have a kind of acoustic panel, but also one that was then showing the logo of the restaurant with light behind it. And this worked out quite well. Next slide then. In this case, you can see a relaxing chair with an upholstery of, again, recycled denim felt. So also for cushioning, for soft applications where you need a soft touch, this felt works quite well. The next slides. This is, in fact, the first material that we developed. It's called biolaminate. It's one that was also shown in the process picture, where we combined recycled denim fibers with a bio-based binder. And this is a general approach of us. We always need a binder between the textile fibers in order to keep them together and create a structure. In this picture, you also can see that we work with 6 standard colors. And in fact, those relate to also 6 different sources of materials, which come out of the sorting of textiles in case of the denim, or based on a batch of clothing that's available, for instance, the beige and the green version, which are made from military uniforms. And this is a constant available source because there's a lot of those kinds of textiles available. These materials find a way towards medium type of application, and you must think of wall covering, but also this material is suitable to be thermoformed, which can be shown in the next picture. Already in 2018, we created a recycled denim chair, also made from recycled denim fibers. And we supplied around 200 pieces to a municipality of Maastricht. And in the next slide, you may see that we then further optimized this chair, because also here we worked with a Nike content supplied by Nike again. In this case, the same question was there. Of which type of material do you have lying around 2 tons at least? In this case, there is a shirt of Galatasaray, a Turkish football club that has been used in this chair design. And you also again see the process, which is similar to the ones we've described before. Now, this chair was optimized due to the requirements that Nike had for that chair, because then it is being used in offices with a high amount of usage, a lot of, let's say, endurance that this chair has to withstand. And in the next slide, you can see the result, where the same chair is being applied in several occasions. It should also be stackable. It should be connectable. So all those things we have to take into account if developing such product. Now, in the next slides, we make a bridge towards the product passport, in this case of this specific chair of Nike, because this is an important aspect of our process, but also of any kind of production process, where you want to know the impact that a product has on the environment. And in order to do so, and to do so in a way that you can compare it to other types of products and materials, of course, it's important that you use a standardized reference from which to work from. Now, in this case, we partner with Silmar in order to find the solution to describe the environmental impact of this specific chair. And then you can go to the next slide, Jasper. Thank you. And here you can see what this impact on the environment of the specific chair has, based on the information that is supplied by the system that Silmar is offering. They make use of publicly available databases in which most materials are then already described. but I think Jasper will speak more about that later on. And it helps us a lot in finding the right type of description of what this chair does. And then in the next slide, you may see not only what this chair does, but also how it relates to competitive chairs. So in this case, we chose a chair Arbor. It's called, I believe, that I don't have the slide here, but the Cativa. It's a chair that consists of injection molded seating made from polypropylene. And as you may see in the comparison, on almost every level, the recycled night chair behaves way better in the way regarded to environmental impact in comparison to this Arbor chair. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but anyhow, this is for us a good way of showing what this type of product contributes to a better area or better world or the better type of production without using too much of virgin resources, but making use of recycled content. Another example you will find in my final sheet. Here you see an overview of the impact that another material is having. It's called DenimX Eco HPL, high pressure laminate. This material is being used in the furniture industry a lot. So if you're able to offer a better performing material, I think that's very interesting also for this industry. And in this case, I believe in the comparison here, there's still an epoxy resin, but we then make use of a bio-resin, a bio-based resin that has way lower impact and a CO2 emission. And this again helps us to, let's say, contribute to a better world and a greener world. And I think with the help of our friends, our partners, and also like-minded organizations and people, which may also be here today, we all together can then work towards a more sustainable future. And this is hopefully a brief introduction of our approach. And I'm looking forward to answer any of your questions with regard to this presentation. Thank you so far.
Thank you, Marc. Yeah, before I take over, well, actually, I've already taken over, but still, I thought it would be interesting to touch upon a couple points that you discussed, just to give some more insights to the participants here, because I thought you mentioned some interesting things. One of which is that you discuss very extensively what the required properties are of products, and thus for the materials that are used in these products. What I wanted to know, and I was wondering whether you can share something about that, is to what extent your customers are very critical of recycled content, for instance, because what we see is that well, the use of recycled content is not it's not very obvious. It's not a first thought for many companies. But how do you deal with their questions regarding the qualities of materials?
Well, the most manufacturers, because that's what most of our clients are, they are, let's say, the level of requirements are determined by their customers. And if you buy a car and it would state that there is recycled content in there, and then it doesn't drive as far or as fast as you're accustomed to, you as a customer would not accept that. So in that sense, they are quite skeptic about using recycled content, because up until now, recycled materials were not able to perform that well. And I think so they are quite critical. But then again, this whole transition towards recycled, the use of recycled materials, but also bio-based materials, which goes a bit the same. Yeah, we're only somehow at the starting point. We're not there where we want to be. And I think what we've done so far with DenimX is trying to uplift the level of quality of the materials that contain recycled content. So yes, there is a gap that we have to bridge. Yes, companies are quite skeptic also because they had some, let's say backdraft or problems with recycled materials that they did apply. And it is growing towards each other. That's the situation. Yeah.
Okay. And as a result, do you see sort of, even if very slightly so, a shift in thinking once they've worked with you? So do you see that they understand the qualities that recycled content can have, and that it's just as good, and in some aspects probably even better, because it also adds a certain flavor to their products? And do you see anything there?
Yeah, well, the biggest compliment you can have as a supplier, or this case a developer, is that companies return to you with new questions and new orders. So in that sense, the answer is yes. Then again, if you look at a large company like Nike, they are very much divided in all kinds of divisions. The one is dealing with the shops, the other one with the offices. Then you have the core products, the shoes and the gear, the garments. And there is not that much interaction because they have their own sources, they have their own. So it might grow better and faster if there's a better, let's say, exchange of information in that sense. But this applies merely to a large corporate. I think in smaller companies, once they have learned what recycled materials are capable of, I think then it's easier for them to apply it also in a new development.
Yeah. Okay. That's quite clear. Let me take over from here. I think it was good to pinpoint a couple of things from your presentation. So thank you. My first slide that I wanted to discuss, if only very briefly, is the following, which is basically a very brief statement. We don't need legislation to take care of our future, and it sort of ties into something that Marc already mentioned regarding big corporates like Nike, for instance. But this goes for many more companies. Legislation is one of the means that are being used to make this transition from linear to circular products. But we always start conversations with our customers or with partners that we cooperate with, basically saying that we don't need that legislation, strictly speaking. It should go without saying that it's a wise thing to reuse materials, to try and loop as many materials as possible, and to recover materials from the products that we already use. And that's also why I think Marc is an excellent example, because the next slide that I wanted to show you is this very simple button, which doesn't exist. There is not a single button that will allow us to transform our economy from a linear to a circular economy. There's many things that we need to do, and many of those things were already touched upon by Marc. including, for instance, reverse engineering, we need to understand what kind of products will be the next use of materials when we are designing those products. And at Surmar, we look at the circular economy from many perspectives. So you don't just need design, you also need to organize for circular products. You need to organize reverse logistics. You need to make sure, and that's where the digital product passport plays an important role, that the information about products is recorded and shared in such a way that these circular products can come to fruition. But another thing I wanted to touch upon regarding the design, and that was also part of the earlier question I asked Mark, is that in especially these kind of big companies, but also in smaller companies, it can be very difficult to have everybody on board in terms of transitioning the kinds of products that you produce. And in that sense, design plays an important role to be able to create circular products in the first place. So to be able to design for recycling, for disassembly, for reuse, but also to basically send a message that recycled content and better circular products are just as good or maybe even better than their counterparts. Because as you can imagine, it's for a company like Nike, it's very interesting if they receive guests to show them that the products that they have created and that were overstock, that they are being reused, that they don't just landfill materials, that they don't just incinerate materials, but that they're taking steps, however big, towards that more sustainable proposition. And it's not just the designers of products that have meetings in these rooms. It's also the salespeople. It's also the communications department. It's also the legal department. So we also believe that there's a very big role to be played by companies like DenimX and other designers to basically send a message beyond just the design of the product itself. So that's something that I wanted to point out. And the DPP, as Mark already mentioned, is simply a tool in service of this transition towards more circular products. And there's a couple ways in which you can use it. Mark already showed the digital product passports of some of his products. And it basically is a more extensive and a quite simple way to include your whole supply chain, including customers, in what the product is, what it's made of, but also what the impact of that product is. And what you will see is that the automatic impact calculations that happen in our solution allow to basically demonstrate why it's better to go for a product that is designed for the circular economy, and even better if it's also circular in practice, or to some extent circular. So if you can indicate what kind of percentages are recycled, or if you can, for instance, indicate that certain parts of the product can be recycled, take the chair. If you know that the upholstery can also be recycled after use, but the frame unfortunately can't be recycled, then that would be something that you can show in your digital product passport. And interestingly, if you supply a product and you have solutions in place to organize, for instance, the recycling of those products, the digital product passport is a great way to connect that information to a physical product. For some of our customers, they already incorporate, for instance, QR codes or labels with which people can basically scan this code to get access to the digital product passport. So you have it on the physical product as well. And that's not an absolute necessity in our view, because as long as you make this information easily accessible and share it with others, it helps them make better, more circular choices. So that's what I wanted to say about this DPP as a tool in service of the transition towards a more circular economy. Yes, and there's, like I already mentioned, there's not just one button to push. There are many buttons to push. What I already really liked about the story that Mark told is that they're actively continuously looking for the buttons that they can push, because for instance, the binder that he mentioned is one of those things that is easily overlooked in terms of the sustainability and circularity of products. But it's an essential part of making sure that you design a product in such a way that it can be basically disassembled and thus reused or recycled and used for next or has a next use. That's basically the message that I also wanted to give on this platform, is that an important thing to do for us all is basically to look at all the buttons that are available to push and start pushing the ones that we can. Because it might not be the case that you have control over your design processes, but that you do have control over the end of use of your products. Then that's a great way to start making some positive impact. And if the end of use of your products is a bit more complicated, for instance, if you sell T-shirts to basically just consumers, then maybe it's a bit more difficult to gain a grip over the end of use. But you can already look at the design process of your T-shirts and start preparing them for a better next use. And then if you take it a step further, you can obviously start looking at ways to start making steps in that next use as well. For instance, by giving them instructions on how to best recycle those T-shirts, or to at least hand them in a certain place where they can be recycled. And we even see some examples of companies adding, for instance, take-back systems to products. So if you give your your customer an incentive to bring back products, then that also allows us to create bigger feedstocks of basically content to be recycled. And that makes life a whole lot easier also for companies like DenimX to use all of this feedstock to create new products again. So there's many things that we can do, and we basically want to motivate everybody to just start taking steps. And that's the final slide before our webinar concludes. Any step is meaningful. Some are more meaningful than others, and I think some of the value of digital product passports, specifically for DenimX, but for a lot of other companies as well, is that you can gain some insights in where are the biggest impacts, where can we sort of tweak our products, where can we change the composition of our products to make the most impacts, communicate about the things that you're doing. Mark showed us basically his entire process, and he's, in my opinion, very well able to communicate why this makes sense. And I think there's a lot of companies that are already doing a lot of these things, but are hesitant to communicate about them. But what we see is that consumers, but also supply chain partners, are very happy to hear about what you're doing, because it also reflects well on them, and they can use it for their internal improvement processes as well, to learn from what you're doing. So communicate about what you're doing. And let's basically go back to the basics, which is the circular economy. There's a lot of fogginess, I believe, around what actually makes sense, what product is more sustainable than the other, and there's 1,000 languages being spoken about sustainability. But if we follow basically the essence of the circular economy, so reusing wherever possible, designing for reuse and recycling, and making sure that products are easily disassembled, then the positive impact will follow automatically. So I think that's a great basically way to start making some more positive impact. If there's any more questions, you can ask them. We have been following the chat to see whether there were any questions. If there are no further questions at this point, we can conclude a bit early. I wanted to mention that you can always ask us questions later on. anyone that's both present now in this webinar, but also all the people that signed up, so possibly your colleagues or others, will receive a link to the full recording, so you can watch it again, possibly even slow down the recording so you can follow it even better, or speed it up if you're short on time. We'll make sure that you get the contact details of Marc as well, in case you wanted to connect with him personally. So Marc, I don't know if you have any closing remarks that you would like to share with the audience.
I just hoping we can move on together, because we need all kinds of partnerships and collaborations that are available. I think also the people present here today are the ones that should carry the load. And yeah, let's hope that we all together can make it turn into a more circular world. I think that's my main message. And thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you to those present during this webinar. Yeah, and we look forward to possibly meeting all of you in the future. Keep an eye on our channels, LinkedIn, and our website for future webinars. We have one more planned in a couple of weeks' time, the 24th of June. We'll be speaking with Elroy Bongers from Emma Safety Footwear about their journey towards more circular safety shoes. So that's an interesting one as well. Then all that rests is basically to wish you all a very good day, and hope to see you soon. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you too.